Hey everyone, it's Sammy from Push Square, and today I wanted to do a video on Paris Games Week, which is taking place in Paris, of course, on the 30th of October. Now, if you don't know, Sony is going to hold a press conference. You'll be able to watch that live on Push Square. We're going to have live chat and live blog on pushsquare.com, so make sure you drop by on 30th of October. All the dates and time information I'll link in the description, but Sony's going to hold a press conference, and I thought it'd be fun to go through 10 predictions of what Sony might announce. Now, this was a difficult set of predictions to come up with because it's felt like for a while Sony is kind of leaning more heavily into PlayStation experience, and I actually wasn't expecting them to hold a press conference in Europe this year because they didn't last year either. It was 2015 they last did a press conference at Paris Games Week, and I expected them to save everything for PlayStation experience in December, so it's a bit strange that they're going to hold a press conference at the end of October, but I have come up with 10 predictions. I've played it quite safe. I've kind of avoided big guns because I think stuff like God of War, stuff like The Last of Us Part 2, we're going to see that at PlayStation experience instead. So I've gone for a different kind of vibe for this press conference with my predictions. I think we're going to see a lot of indie stuff, a lot of PlayStation VR stuff, but I'm going to get into my full list of predictions in a second. Before I do, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined, and let's get into it. So I think the first and most obvious prediction for this Paris Games Week press conference is that there's going to be a price drop. Like, the timing is so perfect because we're just going into the holidays now. It also happens to fall a week before the Xbox One X comes out, and while I don't think Sony will be too concerned about what Microsoft's doing, it'll certainly be on the back of their mind, and if they can drop the price of the PS4 before that console comes out, then that's going to really work well in their favour. So I think what you're going to see is you're going to see the PS4 Slim go from $299 in the US to $249 in the US, and I think you'll see the PS4 Pro go from $399 to $349 in the US. Now, it may be that retailers go further with those prices and create their own sort of bundles and do their own promotions, but I think that will be like the recommended retail prices. It keeps the $100 differential between the PS4 Slim and the PS4 Pro, which I think is something that Sony will want to maintain, but it would also put it like $150 cheaper than the Xbox One X, the PS4 Pro specifically, which I think is quite a powerful sort of marketing point. Like, the PS4 Pro is still a very competent piece of hardware, and I'm not sure that Microsoft's going to be able to justify $150 of value more. But yeah, that's what I think is going to happen. I think the main thing at this press conference, I think, is going to be a price drop, and I think the Slim is going to $249 and the Pro is going to $349. So my second big prediction is also pretty obvious. Like, this press conference is taking place in Paris, and where is Quantic Dream based? They're based in Paris, right? So I think we're going to see a little bit more of Detroit Become Human. This game has been knocking around for a while now, and we have seen it quite a few times now, but we've only really seen sort of 3 scenarios from the game. I think there's always time to show more scenarios, new scenes, and kind of reinforce the idea that this game is going to be all about choice and the variety that those choices and branching sort of paths are going to create. So I think we'll see a new sort of section from Detroit Become Human, maybe demonstrating some alternative paths that you can take through that sort of scene, and I think, yeah, we might even get a release date depending how far out it is. If it's coming in sort of the first half of 2018, I think a Detroit Become Human release date would be a safe prediction. So that's my second one. So the third prediction on my list is one that we've talked about a hell of a lot in recent times, and that is Dreams, the new game from Media Molecule, which was actually announced like over 2 years ago, but we haven't seen a lot of it over the past 18 months. Now, I think the reason for that is that Sony and Media Molecule never really seemed to know how to sell Dreams when it was originally announced. And if you're not familiar with it, the game I've been describing as a kind of imagination simulation. It allows you to kind of build games, build artwork, build animations, build short movies, that sort of stuff. So it's similar to Little Big Planet in a way, but it seems way more versatile. But the problem is, like, showing off tools isn't particularly exciting. Now, Media Molecule has said that it's been using its own tools within the game. It's been using the engine to create a single player campaign. So just like Little Big Planet, there will be levels that have been created by Media Molecule that you can play within it. And I think that's what they're going to show at Paris Games Week. It feels like it's been long enough for them to have put something together, something interesting, and something that can really reveal the scope of the game, reveal the potential of the game, and also show how it's actually going to play when you're not creating things. This is a really difficult sell. I'm struggling to talk about it. I think Sony and Media Molecule, they've had a long time. They haven't shown anything for a while now. They need to have come up with a plan of how they're going to market this game, because it's one thing creating such a clever, outlandish idea, but then you have to sell it, and that's where they've been struggling. So if they're going to reintroduce Dreams at Paris Games Week 2017, then I think that they need to really introduce it properly and make sure people understand exactly what it is this time. So that's my third prediction. My fourth prediction is another one of these European developed games that seems to have been sort of stuck in development hell for a long time, and that's Wild. So this is Michel Ancel's game, who you may best know for the Rayman series, but he also recently announced that he's actually gonna create Beyond Good and Evil 2, which is a sequel that a lot of people have been waiting for a long time. So he's a busy guy, and Wild hasn't really made much progress in the sort of 4 years since it was announced, which is disappointing. So I think we need to see an update on this game. Ancel has reiterated that he's still working on it. It's a very small team creating a very ambitious project, and I think this feels like the right time for an update on Wild. It's been so long since we last saw it. I definitely think, given that the developer is based in France, that Paris Games Week is the right venue to sort of reintroduce it, much like Dreams. But yeah, we need to see more of this game, and I think we need to have a firmer roadmap of when it's actually coming out. So my fourth prediction is that we'll see more Wild, and hopefully there might be a release date to go along with it. Okay, so my fifth prediction is PlayStation VR. Now, there was definitely concern prior to E3 that Sony was going to kind of abandon virtual reality, much like it's done with the Vita, and much like it's done with lots of peripherals in the past, like the PlayStation Move and the iToy, and it's got a long history for doing that, but it's definitely doubled down on PlayStation VR in recent months. Like, E3 was a great show for virtual reality, and only fairly recently, over the last few weeks, it's confirmed like 60 games are in development for PlayStation VR, with lots more to come. I think this is a good show to show sort of PlayStation VR stuff. This press conference seems like it's a good fit for virtual reality. I think PSX is going to lean more heavily on the big blockbuster AAA games, like I said earlier. So this is a good venue for Sony to show some of the more creative, imaginative, outlandish stuff like Dreams and like PlayStation VR stuff. So I think we might see new announcements from some of the first party developers that Sony's got that we know are working on virtual reality, and by that I mean London Studio, who's been very quiet since PlayStation VR Worlds launched last year, and also not many people know, but Sony actually established a new first party studio called Manchester Studio. So they're working out of the UK on a new PlayStation VR game as well, and while it may be a little bit too early for them to show something, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw their project as well. But in addition to that, I think we're going to see lots of stuff from indie developers, European developers, maybe not household names, but smaller studios that are working hard on virtual reality projects. Sony's been really good at making sure that games that come out on sort of Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive are also getting PlayStation VR ports. So I think it should have a lot of VR content to show off during this press conference, and that's personally, I know not everyone will agree with me, but I personally want to see that. I want to see the roadmap for PSVR being laid out and filled with content, because that gives me faith that Sony's still committed to this format, which it very much seems to be. So yeah, I definitely think we're going to see a big PlayStation VR segment during this press conference. Number 6 is a really easy prediction. Like, Horizon Zero Dawn's first expansion pack, The Frozen Wilds, is due out on 7th of November. We know bits about it and we've seen some screenshots and a few trailers, but we haven't actually learned a lot about what the story's going to be like, what kind of quests there'll be, or whether there's going to be any new creatures in the game. So I think a gameplay demo of Horizon Zero Dawn's Frozen Wilds expansion pack makes a lot of sense. It will sell a lot of people on the DLC, and it's like coming out like a week after the press conference, so it just seems like a no-brainer that this is going to be included in the press conference. So that's my 6th prediction. Okay, the 7th prediction is a little wishy-washy one, but Sony come under a lot of criticism at E3 about the fact that it didn't show any indie games like at all. Like, it relegated Undertale to the pre-show, it relegated Superhot to the pre-show, and then it focused entirely on big budget games during its press conference. Meanwhile, sort of Microsoft went in a different direction. It showed a lot of indie games during its press conference at E3, and a lot of people sort of questioned whether Sony's still committed to indie games, and it obviously is. If you look at the PlayStation Store, it's absolutely filled with great indie games. They're constantly being announced for the platform on the PlayStation blog. There's loads coming out, but I think Sony may want to recommit its kind of focus on indie games and show that it is still very sort of committed to smaller studios and promoting their games and bringing them to the PlayStation 4 as a platform. So I think we'll see a lot of indie games during this press conference. I struggled to come up with some noteworthy indie games that aren't already on PlayStation but could like a high enough profile to be announced at this thing. The ones I did come up with were like A Hat in Time. I think that's already been announced for PS4, but they may want to sort of re-announce it and say, look, this game is definitely coming to PS4 and this is when it's coming. And the other one I thought of was Golf Story. Now, I'm not sure what that game's relationship is with Nintendo exactly. I know it's sort of been announced as a timed exclusive, so it might be one that they'd want to say, look, this game is now coming to PS4 as well. But I'm sure there'll be lots and lots of indie games that they can announce during this press conference, and I wouldn't be surprised if they doubled down on that, just to sort of show that they are very much still committed to promoting smaller developers and promoting smaller games. So yeah, 7th prediction, lots of indie stuff. Okay, so number 8 I think is a kind of wild one, but I wouldn't be surprised if Sony announced November's PlayStation Plus lineup during this press conference. Now, stick with me here, the PlayStation Plus lineup is set to be announced if Sony follows its usual schedule on like the 1st of November, Wednesday the 1st of November, but this press conference takes place on Monday the 30th of October, and if they've got a really good lineup sort of slated for PlayStation Plus in November, I wouldn't be surprised if they just announced it on stage. They've done this before. I remember one Gamescom, they announced like Red Dead Redemption and Assassin's Creed 3 were going to be part of the Instant Game Collection for the PS3. That was many years ago. I can't believe I remember that, but I actually do. But yeah, if they've got a good lineup of PlayStation Plus goodies, why wouldn't you announce that on stage? You may as well. I'm not saying they're going to spend a lot of time on it, but if they've got a really big game coming to the service, then they may as well announce that and get people re-upping their subscriptions or whatever. You know, it's a good venue to announce some positive news like that, so I could see that happening. So my 8th prediction is that November 2017's PlayStation Plus lineup could be announced during this press conference. Okay, my 9th prediction is a really boring one and really obvious, but stick with me here. So I think we'll see new trailers, new gameplay footage, whatever it is, of Call of Duty World War II and Star Wars Battlefront 2, and the simple reason for that is that Sony is kind of contractually bound to promote these games, it seems, whenever it has an opportunity to do so. Like, these marketing deals seem to definitely expand to that, so I think they're definitely going to be there. Neither game will be out at the time of the press conference. The companies, the publishers, EA and Activision, will want Sony to promote them as much as it possibly can, and yeah, it'll have new trailers for both of them. I think the other game that I think we might see from a third party is Monster Hunter World. Now, we have seen quite a lot of this game since it was announced at E3, but realistically it makes sense that we've seen quite a lot of it because it's out in early January, so it's like not that far away at the time of recording. So I think they'll probably double down on Monster Hunter World, maybe show a new trailer of that, and they might even announce that really cool PS4 Pro, limited edition PS4 Pro that they announced for Japan at Tokyo Game Show, because I think there's been a lot of Western interest from that. So yeah, 9th prediction is we'll see those big marketing third-party deals like Call of Duty, like Star Wars Battlefront, and like Monster Hunter World. And then my final prediction is one that I thought maybe they would save for PlayStation Experience, but I'm actually umming and ahhing on it, and I think we might see it at Paris Games Week, and that is a release date for Shadow of the Colossus. Now, this is the remake that Bluepoint's been making. It was announced at E3 and it's already gone through loads of ratings boards, so it seems like the project is practically finished. So I wouldn't be surprised if this game came out in very early January, in which case it makes sense to announce the release date and get pre-orders rolling, and then they can let people get hands-on time with it at PlayStation Experience later in the year. So my 10th prediction, a really easy one, is that Shadow of the Colossus is going to get a release date at Paris Games Week. Okay, so they're my 10 predictions. Like I said, I didn't want to include stuff like God of War, Spider-Man and The Last of Us Part 2 because I think we're going to see those kind of games at PlayStation Experience. So this is sort of the stuff that I thought would be left over that would make a decent press conference in Paris. Now, Sony has been hyping up the press conference way more than I expected them to. I would encourage you to keep your expectations in check. That way you can't come away disappointed. But do let me know whether you think there's something I've missed from my predictions, maybe a game that you think will be announced or a release date that will be revealed, and let me know those in the comment section below. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel because we'll have all of the news from Paris Games Week and all of the trailers on here. And yeah, make sure you visit pushsquare.com because like I say, we'll have live stream, live blog, live chat and all those cool features during the press conference itself. So yeah, please join us for that, and thank you so much for watching.